the Forgotten Favor. The story opens on the outer edge of the Corothic Expanse, where the Galactic Council debates the reconstruction of a dying world. Decades earlier, humanity had been rescued from extinction by an alien race called the Valerii during the Collapse Wars. In gratitude, humans pledged an eternal debt of honor. Now, that debt is remembered when the Valerii send a desperate call for aid. Captain Ryu Jae-hwan, commander of the Terran Defense Fleet, is chosen to lead the mission, alongside his second-in-command Kim Han-ul and xenolinguist Park Dae-sung. He must navigate the politics of a galaxy that fears humanity's unpredictable nature. The Council doubts humanity's sincerity, whispering that Earth's help always comes at a cost. But the Valerii plea is genuine. Their homeworld is under siege by the warlike Thalrak's dominion, and humans do not forget their debts. Part 2, The Call to Arms. The Terran fleets move silently through the void. Ryu Jae-hwan stands before the holomap, watching the Valerii defense lines crumble. The Dominion's fleets are 10 times their size. Yet, humanity answers without hesitation. On Luna Command, General Lee Ji-ho authorizes the mobilization of the Earth Guard, an elite corps formed after the Reconciliation Wars. Lieutenant Han So-ra, a decorated pilot with a calm temperament, is assigned to Jae-hwan's strike group. Together, they represent the best of humanity's reforged military. As Terran ships arrive, the galaxy watches in disbelief. No human warship has left Sol in a century. The Dominion mocks them. But when the first salvo is fired, silence spreads across the Council feeds. Earth's retaliation is swift, precise, and absolute. The Thalrak's armada is reduced to burning debris within hours. Part 3, The Debt Repaid. The Valerii are stunned. They remember the fragile, desperate humans they once saved. Now, those same humans wield power that shakes the stars. In the aftermath, Ryu Jae-hwan meets Elder Velayar, the Valerii matriarch who remembers Earth's ancestors. She weeps as she tells him, "Your kind has surpassed us." But Jae-hwan shakes his head. "We only kept our promise." Human engineers and medics rebuild Valerii cities, working tirelessly under blue alien suns. The Valerii children play with human drones, learning their language. Yet rumors spread among the galactic nations. Some call humanity noble. Others call them dangerous. The balance of power trembles. Part 4, The Shattered Balance. The Thalrak's dominion retaliates, sending assassins and spies into Valerii space. The Galactic Council convenes an emergency session. The representative from the Dominion accuses humanity of destabilizing the Order. Kim Han-ul and Han So-ra uncover a plot to use an ancient weapon, the Celestine Core, buried within the Valerii moons. If activated, it could wipe out entire systems. The Dominion plans to frame Earth for its use. Ryu Jae-hwan makes a fateful choice to strike first. The Terran fleet launches Operation Aegis Dawn. In a display of terrifying precision, human AI-driven warships disable the Dominion's command structure in seconds. The weapon never fires, but the galaxy has seen enough. To them, humanity's power is no longer benevolence. It is fear incarnate. Part 5, The Debt Remembered. Years later, the galaxy has changed. The Valerii thrive once again, their world protected by an unspoken alliance with Earth. Humanity withdraws into its own borders, silent and watchful. Elder Velayar visits Earth, standing before a memorial on the moon dedicated to both species. The inscription reads, "We were saved once. We repaid it in kind." In orbit, Ryu Jae-hwan watches the stars from his ship. The Council still debates humanity's true motives, but those who were saved know the truth. Humanity doesn't seek conquest or glory. They simply remember every kindness, every wound. And when humans repay their debts, the galaxy trembles. The smoke over Valerii Prime had barely cleared when the call came from Earth Command. Captain Ryu Jae-hwan stood in the small communication room of the Soul's Promise, his uniform still marked with soot and dust from the battlefield. The holographic image of General Lee Ji-ho appeared before him, his face calm but serious. "You did well, Captain," the general said. "The Council is already talking about what happened. The whole galaxy saw the Terran fleet return." Ryu nodded. "We only did what we promised, sir. The Valerii needed us." "That's true," the general replied. "But the Thalrak's Dominion won't see it that way. They've already sent a message to the Council, claiming we interfered in an internal conflict. They call it a violation of galactic neutrality." Ryu frowned. Neutrality? The Valerii were being wiped out. Lee Ji-ho sighed. "The galaxy rarely cares about right or wrong, Captain. They only care about balance. And now, They fear that balance is broken. When the transmission ended, Ryu stood silently for a while. He looked out through the viewing window at the Valerie world below. The fires were fading, replaced by flickers of light where human engineers had begun rebuilding the ruined cities. Kim Han-no entered quietly, holding a datapad. "Command has approved reinforcements," she said. "A second fleet is on its way. We're also getting humanitarian teams from Mars and Europa." "That's good," Ryu said. "The Valerie need more than soldiers now. They need stability." Han-no hesitated, then added, "There's something else. Dominion scouts have been spotted near the outer moons. They're watching us." Ryu turned to face her fully. "Then let them watch. Maybe they'll remember what happens when humans fight for something that matters." Down on the surface, the rebuilding had already started. Human engineers worked side by side with Valerie artisans. The air was filled with the hum of construction drones and the soft voices of people trying to bring life back to a dead city. Lieutenant Han Sore walked through the ruins with a team of medics, carrying supplies to the survivors. She was young, her uniform still crisp, but her eyes had seen enough in the last week to age her years. As she passed a broken fountain, a group of Valerie children ran to her, their translucent skin glowing faintly in the sunlight. One of them held a small metal bird, a toy one of the human soldiers had built for them. Soare smiled, kneeling down. "Do you like it?" she asked softly. The tallest child nodded eagerly. "It sings when you press here." He touched the side of the bird, and it made a soft, chirping sound. The sound of laughter filled the air for the first time since the battle ended. For a moment, Soare forgot the war, but not everyone shared her peace. At the far end of the reconstruction site, Park Dae-sung sat at a terminal, decoding intercepted Thalrax transmissions. His brow furrowed as line after line of alien symbols scrolled across the screen. Kim Han-no approached quietly. "Anything useful?" she asked. Park nodded grimly. "The Dominion is regrouping. They've lost this battle, but they're planning to strike again. Somewhere bigger. They're calling this a human invasion." Han-no leaned closer. "Do they know how strong we really are?" He looked at her, his eyes troubled. "No, but they will soon. And when they do, they'll see us not as saviors, but as the next empire." That night, Ryu attended a meeting with Elder Velayar, the leader of the Valerie. She was older than anyone in her city, her skin now faded and pale from the stress of the war. She sat across from him, her thin hands clasped together. "You saved us," she said softly. "Our people owe their lives to yours. But I must ask, what will happen now? The Thalrax will return. The Council will fear you. And the Valerie, we may become your burden." Ryu shook his head. "We didn't come for power or control. We came because we remember. Humanity does not forget those who helped them when they were weak." Elder Velayar smiled faintly. "That is a rare thing in this galaxy." Ryu looked down for a moment. "Maybe that's why they fear us." In the days that followed, the Valerie began to recover. Human drones built new homes. Terran medics taught Valerie doctors how to use nanotech to heal their wounded. The two species worked together, learning from one another. Slowly, hope returned to Valerie Prime, but the shadow of the Dominion never left. One morning, the alert siren sounded through the fleet. Ryu ran to the bridge, where Han-no was already waiting. "What's the situation?" he demanded. Han-no pointed to the display. "We've detected a transmission from the Dominion. It's open channel, no encryption." The message played across the speakers, deep and full of rage. "Humans," the voice said, "you have crossed into wars that are not yours. You think your forgotten debts matter in our galaxy. But know this, you have awoken something that should have stayed buried. We will come for you. We will burn your skies as you burned ours." The message ended in static. The bridge was silent. Ryu finally said, "Prepare all ships for defensive formation. We hold the system until the reinforcements arrive." Han-no nodded, her face pale but firm. "Yes, Captain." Hours passed. The Terran fleet spread across the system, forming a wide perimeter around the Valerie world. The stars were calm, but every crew member felt the weight of the coming storm. Soare sat in her fighter cockpit, her hands gripping the controls. It was her first real war. She whispered a small prayer, not for victory, but for strength. Then the Dominion came. Dozens of massive ships appeared out of warp, their black holes reflecting the light of the nearby sun. They moved with cold precision, forming a ring around the human fleet. The battle began instantly. Space turned into fire. Human ships fought like a living creature. The Soul's Promise led the line, firing railguns and plasma cannons that tore through enemy shields. The smaller Terran frigates darted between the heavy cruisers, attacking from the flanks. For every human ship destroyed, 3 Dominion ships fell. Soare's fighter flew, through clouds of debris, her sensors flashing warnings. She locked onto a Dominion bomber, fired 2 missiles, and watched it break apart in silence. Her breath came fast, her heart pounding, but she didn't slow down. On the bridge, Hanno shouted over the alarms. Shields at 60%. We can't take much more of this. Hold the line. Ryu ordered. If we fall, the Valerie fall with us. The Dominion flagship loomed ahead, a monstrous vessel bristling with cannons. Ryu clenched his fists. Target the command ship. All power to forward batteries. The Soul's Promise charged, engines blazing. The final salvo hit the Dominion flagship head-on. For a second, the screen filled with light, and then the enemy ship split apart in 2. The explosion rippled to the battlefield, and the remaining Dominion ships began to retreat. The stars went quiet once more. The crew of the Soul's Promise let out a long, weary breath. Hanno slumped in her chair, exhausted but alive. "They're running," she said. "We did it again." Ryu stared at the empty screen, his expression unreadable. "They'll be back. And next time, they won't just come for the Valerie." He turned away, looking out into the endless dark. Humanity had answered a call for help. But in doing so, they had shaken something deep in the galaxy's heart. Somewhere out there, every world was watching and wondering what kind of species humans really were. The fires of battle had faded, but the silence that followed felt even heavier. The human fleet drifted above Valerie Prime, its ships damaged and weary. Captain Ryu Jaewon stood on the bridge of the Soul's Promise, looking at the screen filled with debris and broken metal. Victory had come at a high cost. Hundreds of human soldiers had been lost, and the Dominion had fled. But everyone knew it was only a matter of time before they returned. The galaxy was watching, and now every government wanted to know what humanity would do next. Ryu's second-in-command, Kim Hanul, walked quietly to his side. "We've begun collecting the wreckage, Captain. Survivors from the Dominion ships are refusing rescue. They'd rather die than be captured by humans." Ryu sighed. "They fear us already. That fear will grow." Hanul nodded. "The Council has sent a message. They want a meeting with you and the Valerie Elder. It seems they think humanity is trying to start another galactic war." Ryu gave a short, humorless laugh. "We came to pay a debt, not start one." He turned away and walked toward the viewing deck. Through the glass, he could see the Valerie city slowly rebuilding under the pale sun. The ruins were being replaced by new structures built by human engineers and Valerie craftsmen working together. It was a strange sight, 2 species from different worlds sharing the same purpose. On the surface, Lieutenant Han Soare moved through the new capital with a small team of soldiers. She carried a medical pack on her back, helping Valerie children injured during the attacks. The children smiled at her, their bright eyes full of trust. One of them tugged at her hand and said in broken English, "You protect us?" Soare smiled. "Yes, always." As she worked, she noticed a group of Valerie elders watching her from a distance. One of them whispered something to another, and they all nodded slowly. Humanity had done more than save their world. They had given them hope. Meanwhile, in the orbiting council station above the neutral belt, leaders from across the galaxy gathered to discuss the new threat. Holograms of different species filled the large hall, their faces filled with suspicion. The Dominion representative spoke first, his voice sharp and full of venom. "The humans have returned to the galaxy with weapons of terror," he said. "They destroy fleets, alter power balances, and call it repayment. We all saw what they did to the Thalrax. How long until they decide the rest of us owe them too?" The council chamber filled with murmurs. Some agreed, others remained silent. The Valerie representative, Elder Veliar herself, stood to speak. Her tone was calm but firm. "Humanity did not come for conquest. They came because we once saved them. And now they have saved us. If that frightens you, perhaps it is because you have forgotten what gratitude looks like." The chamber grew silent. Even the Dominion representative said nothing. But as Veliar returned to her seat, she saw fear in their eyes. Not fear of war, fear of humans. Back on the Soul's Promise, Ryu Jaehwan received the Council's official decision. The message came through cold and diplomatic. Human intervention in Valerie affairs has been deemed destabilizing. Terran fleets are to withdraw immediately. Further presence will be considered a violation of Council law. Hanul read the message aloud, her voice tight with disbelief. "They're ordering us to leave." Ryu said nothing for a moment. Then he looked up, his expression calm. "We're not leaving until the Valerie can defend themselves." "Captain," Hanul said softly, "if we stay, the Council might turn against us." Ryu met her eyes. "Then let them. Humanity has faced worse than angry politicians." Down below, Elder Velar met with Ryu that evening. They stood in the open courtyard of the new Valerie capital, the sky glowing with the light of twin moons. "They want you gone," she said quietly. Ryu nodded. "They fear what they don't understand. Humans have been gone from the galaxy for a long time. They don't know who we've become." The Elder studied him for a long moment. "Who have you become, Captain?" He smiled faintly. "People who remember." For several weeks, humanity stayed on Valerie Prime, teaching them how to rebuild their defense systems, sharing medical knowledge, and constructing planetary shields. Human engineers built a massive orbital ring around the planet, a gift to protect the world that once saved Earth. Lieutenant Han Soare was assigned to train the Valerie defense pilots. She grew close to them, especially a young Valerie named Aaron who had lost his family during the first attack. He learned quickly and often asked her questions about Earth. One night, as they sat near the hangar, he asked, "Why do humans fight so hard for others?" Soare thought for a moment. "Because once no one fought for us, and when someone finally did, we promised never to forget." Aaron looked at her, his silver eyes shining. "Then the galaxy should be glad you remember." As the weeks passed, strange rumors began spreading across the Valerie system. Ships with no markings were seen near the edge of the starfield. Communication relays went dark. Park Daesung intercepted encrypted transmissions hinting at a new Dominion plan, a secret weapon being built somewhere in the outer sectors. When Ryu heard the report, his eyes narrowed. "They're not done with us. They're planning something big." Hanul looked uneasy. "The Council will never believe us if we warn them." "Then we won't ask for permission," Ryu said. "We'll find the truth ourselves." He ordered a small strike group to investigate. Soare volunteered to lead the scout team, flying one of the fastest ships in the fleet. As they left Valerie orbit, the crew watched silently. They all knew this mission might change everything. Days later, Soare's team reached the coordinates found in the Dominion data. They're hidden behind the rings of a dead planet. They found a massive structure half the size of a moon. It was surrounded by Dominion ships and energy fields pulsing with power. Soare's eyes widened. "Captain, we found it. It's some kind of weapon, bigger than anything we've ever seen." Ryu's voice came over the comms, calm but sharp. "Get the data and get out of there." But it was too late. Dominion fighters had already locked onto them. The scout ships tried to escape, dodging blasts of energy. One by one, they fell. Soare's ship was hit, alarms flashing red. She gritted her teeth and activated the emergency beacon. "Sending data now," she shouted. "Tell the captain." The transmission cut off. Back on the Soul's Promise, Ryu watched the signal vanish. The bridge went silent. Hanul whispered, "We lost her." Ryu's hands tightened into fists. "Then we finished what she started." The data Soare sent before the crash revealed everything. The Dominion was building a weapon called the Celestine Core, capable of destroying entire systems. And they planned to use it against Earth. Ryu turned to Hanul. "Prepare the fleet. We're going after it." She hesitated. "The Council will call it an act of war." He met her gaze, his voice steady. "Then let them. The Dominion has made their choice. Now humanity will make ours." The stars outside shimmered as the Terran fleet began to move again. Humanity had repaid its debt, but now something far greater was coming. The galaxy would soon learn that when humans fight for what they believe in, nothing in the universe can stop them. The fleet moved through the darkness of space like a silent storm. Every ship in the Terran Armada knew what they were heading toward. The Celestine Core. The Dominion secret weapon had the power to destroy whole systems. Captain Ryu Jaehwan stood on the bridge of the Soul's Promise, his eyes fixed on the glowing map projected before him. The coordinates from Soare's last transmission were clear. That was where the Dominion was hiding their weapon, and it was where he intended to strike. Kim Hanul stood beside him, her face pale but calm. "The Council has already sent another warning. They say if we attack, it will start a galaxy-wide war." Ryu didn't look away from the map. "Then it's already started. The Dominion began it when they built that weapon." Hanul hesitated. "We could send the data to the Council, make them see reason." Ryu shook his head. "They won't believe us. By the time they decide what to do, the Dominion will be ready to fire. We have no time for politics. The crew worked in silence. Everyone felt the weight of what they were about to do. Humanity had entered the galaxy again not for conquest, but now they stood on the edge of another war. Ryu turned to his officers. We go in quietly. We strike fast, take the core before they can use it. If we fail, there won't be an Earth left to go home to. In the hangar bay, the pilots prepared their fighters. The smell of oil and metal filled the air. The men and women moved with practiced discipline, checking weapons and systems. Among them was Lieutenant Soray's empty locker. Her flight helmet hung there, polished and untouched. The pilots had placed a small veilary charm beside it, a symbol of remembrance. When Ryu passed through the hangar, everyone stood straighter. He didn't make a speech. He simply said, "For Earth, for Soray, for every world that can defend itself." That was enough. Hours later, the fleet dropped out of warp near a dark and silent planet. The Dominion base floated above its surface, built into the remains of an ancient asteroid ring. The Celestine core was there, a massive sphere glowing faint blue, energy swirling around it like a living storm. The Dominion ships surrounded it like a shield. Ryu gave the order. All ships, stealth mode. Begin Operation Aegis Dawn. Terran ships moved through the shadows, their engines running cold and silent. Using new cloaking technology, they approached undetected. Hano monitored the Dominion patrols carefully. "Their sensors can't see us yet," she whispered. "We're within range." "Fire when ready," Ryu said. The first wave of missiles struck with perfect accuracy. The Dominion fleet reeled in confusion as explosions tore through their lines. The Soul's Promise led the charge, weapons blazing. Human fighters launched from their hangars, cutting through the enemy like blades of light. Inside the Dominion control center, alarm screamed. The commander of the base shouted orders, his voice full of panic. "It's the humans. How did they find us?" But it was too late. The Terran forces were already inside the defensive perimeter. Hano watched the data feed. "We're breaking through their shields, but the core is charging. They're trying to activate it." Ryu clenched his fists. "Target the power relays. If they fire that thing, everything here, including us, will be gone." Park Daesung, monitoring from the science station, shouted, "Captain, I'm reading an unstable reaction. If the core reaches full charge, it could trigger a chain explosion across the entire system." "Then we shut it down," Ryu said, "even if we have to do it by hand." He left the command chair and made his way to the shuttle bay. Hano followed him. "You can't go down there," she said. "It's suicide." Ryu turned to her. "Someone has to. You have the bridge. If I don't come back, finish this." Before she could protest, he was already aboard a drop shuttle with a small team of soldiers. The shuttle sped through enemy fire, shaking violently as plasma bolts streaked past. Ryu gripped his seat, eyes locked on the glowing structure ahead. They landed on the outer platform of the Dominion base. The air shimmered with energy. The Celestine core towered above them, humming like a heartbeat. The soldiers moved quickly, setting charges and cutting through doors. The Dominion guards fought fiercely, but the humans pushed forward. Inside the control chamber, Ryu found the activation console. Streams of alien text flashed across the screens, showing the weapons countdown. Park's voice came through the comms. "Captain, you have less than 10 minutes before overload." Ryu began connecting the data drives, trying to bypass the control locks. "Can we shut it down remotely?" he asked. "Negative," Park replied. "The Dominion encrypted it. You'll have to do it manually." Ryu looked around. Energy surged through the core's crystal lines. The glow was growing brighter. He knew what he had to do. "Hano," he said over the radio, "prepare the fleet for full withdrawal. If this thing goes off, I don't want anyone nearby." Her voice came back tense. "You're not staying there." "I don't have a choice," he said quietly. "If we leave it, billions will die. Tell them Earth remembers." He pulled open a control panel and began cutting wires, rerouting energy flows. The core trembled, its light flickering wildly. The soldiers around him tried to hold the line as Dominion troops swarmed the platform. On the Soul's Promise, Hano stood frozen. Park looked at her helplessly. "Captain Ryu's signal is inside the core chamber. He's overriding the system. If he fails..." The rest went unsaid. Minutes passed. The ship's sensors showed the core's energy spike, then suddenly drop. The blue glow faded to black. The entire Dominion base went dark. Hano's breath caught. "He did it," she whispered. But the victory came with silence. Ryu's calm went dead. Down below, smoke filled the chamber. Ryu lay on the floor, his armor cracked and sparking. The core had stopped, but the platform was breaking apart. He pushed himself up slowly and looked toward the window. Through the smoke, he saw the stars shining bright. He smiled faintly. "For Earth," he said softly. Then the shockwave hit. The Soul's Promise watched from orbit as the Dominion base exploded, a ring of fire spreading across the sky. The Celestine core was gone. The Dominion fleet scattered in chaos. Humanity had destroyed the weapon, but at a terrible cost. Hanul stood silently at the front of the bridge. The crew waited for an order, but she said nothing. Her eyes were wet as she whispered, "Bring us home." Back on Valerie Prime, the news spread quickly. The Dominion weapon was destroyed. The humans had won. The Valerie gathered in their rebuilt cities, lighting lanterns in the night sky for Fallen. Elder Velayar stood on the balcony of the new council hall, watching the lights rise into the air. "The humans have changed the galaxy," she said softly. "They have repaid their debt and more." On Earth, General Lee Jiho watched the transmission from the Soul's Promise. His expression was both proud and sorrowful. "He did what he had to," he said quietly. "He gave the galaxy its future." In the depths of space, the human fleet began its long journey home. The galaxy now knew that humanity was no longer silent, no longer weak. They were protectors, fighters, and remembrers of every kindness and every wrong. The stars burned bright as if in salute. And somewhere in the endless dark, the name of Ryu Jaehwan became legend. The human fleet returned to Earth after months of travel. The stars passed by slowly, and silence filled the halls of every ship. On the Soul's Promise, Captain Kim Hanul sat in the command chair. She looked tired, her eyes shadowed by loss, but she carried herself with quiet strength. The bridge crew moved carefully, speaking softly, still haunted by what they had seen. When Earth came into view, a soft blue sphere shining in the darkness, no one spoke. For a moment, everyone simply stared. It was home, the place they had fought for, bled for, and nearly lost. Hanul whispered, "We made it back." General Lee Jiho greeted them at the Terran command station. He stood tall, his silver hair glinting under the lights as he looked at the returning heroes. Hanul saluted, but he shook his head. "You don't salute me," he said quietly. "You salute the ones who didn't return." There was a ceremony that evening. Every city on Earth turned off its lights, leaving the world in darkness except for the glowing lanterns floating in the sky. Each lantern carried a name, the names of those who had fallen in the Celestine War. The ocean shimmered with reflected light, and the night was full of silent prayers. Hanul stood with Park Daesung near the sea. The waves crashed softly against the rocks. "Do you think he's really gone?" Park asked quietly. Hanul didn't answer for a while. "No," she said at last. "People like him never really leave. They become part of the stories that guide us." Maybe that's what he wanted, to remind us what humans can be. After the war, the Dominion retreated to the Outer Rim. Their fleets were broken and their leaders vanished. For the first time in centuries, peace settled over the galaxy, but it was an uneasy peace. The memory of what humanity had done, the destruction of the Celestine core, lingered like a storm in everyone's mind. On Valerie Prime, Elder Velayar met with the council. The rebuilt hall was full of light and calm voices. The Valerie had begun to recover, their cities glowing like crystal among the mountains. "The humans saved us," said Council Navarra. "But they also changed everything. The Dominion fears them now." Velayar nodded slowly. "They should. The humans showed that they repay kindness with loyalty and cruelty with justice. That balance will keep the galaxy honest." She looked toward the stars. "But it will also make them alone." Back on Earth, Hanul was called to a meeting at Terran Command. General Lee sat across from her, holding a small data chip in his hand. "We've intercepted new transmissions," he said. "Remnants of the Dominion are gathering in the fringe sectors. They're searching for something." Hanul frowned. "Another weapon?" "Possibly," Lee said, "but it's not confirmed. What matters is this." He placed the chip on the table. "We found a signal near the blast zone where Ryu Jaehwan's team went down. It's faint, but it matches his life beacon." Hanul's heart stopped. "He's alive." "We don't know," Lee said. "The signal is fragmented. It could be interference. But we're sending a scout team to investigate. You'll command it." Hanul stood there in silence, then nodded. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow morning," the general said. "The galaxy may be quiet now, but peace never lasts forever." The next day, Hanul and Park boarded the small scout ship Aurora. It was sleek, fast, and built for deep space travel. The engines glowed soft blue as it lifted from the launch bay. Earth grew smaller behind them, fading into the distance. For days, they traveled through the dark sectors of space. The stars became fewer, and static filled their sensors. Then, near the ruins of the Dominion base, they found it, a faint energy reading pulsing slowly from the debris field. Park looked at the screen. That's the signal. It's coming from inside the wreckage. Hanno leaned forward. Lock onto it. Bring us closer. The aurora drifted among the remains of shattered metal and burned stone. The glow of the destroyed Celestine core still shimmered faintly in the distance, like a wound in the void. They found a small escape pod wedged between two broken towers of alloy. Hanno and Park suited up and floated out through the airlock. As they reached the pod, Hanno wiped the dust from the window. Inside, a faint light flickered, a human beacon. She forced the hatch open with her tool. The air inside was cold and stale. There, lying unconscious but alive, was Ryu Jaehwan. His uniform was torn, his face pale, but his heart still beat weakly. Hanno's voice broke as she whispered, "Jaehwan." They carried him back to the ship and placed him in the med bay. Hours passed as the systems repaired his injuries and rehydrated his body. When he finally opened his eyes, he saw Hanno standing beside him. "You came back," he said weakly. She smiled through her tears. "You never really left us." Ryu tried to sit up, but she pushed him gently back. "The Dominion?" he asked. "Defeated. The galaxy's quiet," she said. "You stopped the core. You saved everyone." He looked away. "For how long?" Hanno hesitated. "We'll deal with what comes next, like we always do." Weeks later, when the aurora returned to Earth, the whole planet celebrated. The news spread across the galaxy. Captain Ryu Jaehwan, the hero who destroyed the Celestine core, had survived. The Valerie sent messages of joy, and even the quiet worlds of the Dominion sent signals of truce. But among the celebrations, Ryu felt uneasy. He stood on the balcony of Terran Command, looking at the stars. Park joined him. "You're not enjoying the peace?" he asked. Ryu shook his head. "Peace isn't something you enjoy. It's something you protect. And the galaxy still has shadows." Hanno stepped beside them. "Then we'll face them together," she said. "That's what we do." Years passed. Humanity grew stronger, not in numbers but in unity. They built alliances with the Valerie, the Hellions, and other free races. The Dominion never fully returned. Some said they were rebuilding far away. Others believed they had vanished forever. Children grew up hearing the story of Ryu Jaehwan and the Celestine War. They learned that humans were not the strongest or the oldest, but they were the most determined. They were the species that remembered kindness and never forgot debt. On the anniversary of the battle, the people of Earth and Valerie Prime lit their lanterns again. The night sky glowed with light. Ryu, Hanno, and Park stood together, watching the lights drift upward. The stars above seemed to burn brighter, as if the galaxy itself remembered. Hanno spoke softly. He once said humans repay every debt. Ryu nodded, and the galaxy will always remember that. As the last lantern rose into the sky, the light reflected in their eyes. Humanity had repaid its debt, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The years of peace began to fade slowly. Across the galaxy, small conflicts started to rise again. The Dominion was gone, but their fragments remained, warlords, mercenaries, and old commanders who still carried hate in their hearts. They whispered about revenge, about the day they would rise again. Humanity watched and waited, ready if that day ever came. On Earth, Captain Ryu Jaehwan had recovered from his injuries, though the doctors said he would never be the same. His left arm was partly cybernetic now, a reminder of the battle with the Celestine core. Sometimes, when he stood alone in the observation room, he could almost hear the hum of that weapon again. But more than pain, he felt purpose. The galaxy was still unstable, and he knew he could not rest yet. One quiet morning, Hanno came to see him at the Terran Defense Academy. "They want you to teach," she said, smiling slightly. "Not fight. Teach. The new generation looks up to you." Ryu looked at her with surprise. "Me? A teacher?" "Yes," she said. "You've seen more than most. You know what peace costs." He thought about it for a while, then nodded. "Maybe it's time." The months passed peacefully. Ryu taught young cadets about strategy, unity, and courage. Park Daesung visited often, bringing updates from the fleet. "The border systems are restless," Park said one day during lunch. "Old Dominion captains are forming alliances again. Nothing official yet, but it feels different." Ryu frowned. "Peace is fragile." We knew this day would come. A week later, his fears came true. A transmission arrived at Terran Command, a distress signal from Valerie Prime. The message was broken by interference, but few words came through clearly. Under attack, unknown ships need assistance. Han called for an emergency council. The commanders gathered in the war room, the lights dim, the map of the Valerie system glowing on the table. General Lee Ji-ho looked grim. "We don't know who's attacking," he said. "But the signature doesn't match the old Dominion. It's something new." Ryu felt a chill, or something old reborn. Without waiting for orders, he requested command of a fleet. Hanno volunteered to go with him, and Park joined as chief engineer. The Soul's Promise was rebuilt and ready. Once again, they set out into the stars. The journey to Valerie Prime was long. As they neared the system, they found wreckage drifting through space. Valerie's ships burned and broken. The planet below was dark, its cities in ruins. Ryu clenched his fists. "They came back," he said softly. "The Dominion didn't die, they evolved." Hanno scanned the debris. "There's a transmission coming from the surface. A Valerie outpost. Survivors." Ryu nodded. "Take us down." The shuttle descended through thick clouds of smoke. Fire still burned across the forests. When they landed, Valerie soldiers surrounded them, weapons raised, until they recognized the human insignia. Their leader, a young Valerie officer named Velan, ran forward. "You came," he said, his voice shaking. "We thought you were too far." "What happened here?" Ryu asked. Velan pointed to the sky. "They call themselves the Alaris Dominion. They claim to be the heirs of the old Dominion, but stronger. They came with machines that feed on energy. They took our reactors, our power, even the air around them." Hanno's expression hardened. "They're not just after conquest. They're consuming worlds." Ryu turned to Park. "Get our sensors linked with theirs. We need to know how many ships they have." Hours passed as they gathered information. The Alaris fleet was massive, far beyond what they expected. Their ships were built from scavenged Dominion, designs mixed with something else, something darker. Park studied the readings. "Captain," he said, "these ships don't just use energy, they drain it. They can pull power from shields, weapons, even life support." Ryu looked at the hologram silently. "Then we find a way to fight them, without giving them what they want." He called the fleet together. "The Alaris Dominion thinks we're the same as before, scattered and afraid. But we've learned. Humanity stand with the Valerie, and together we will stop them." The next morning, they struck back. The Terran and Valerie fleets moved together, attacking from the shadow side of the planet. The first wave hit the Alaris ships hard, but soon the enemy adapted. Their ships began draining power from the Terran weapons. Lights dimmed across the control rooms as energy was pulled away. Hanno shouted, "They're feeding on our systems. We can't keep this up." Park's voice came through the comm. "I might have a way. If we overload our own energy cores for a few seconds, the surge might burn out their absorption fields. But it's dangerous. It could destroy our ships too." Ryu thought quickly. "Do it. Set the timer for 20 seconds. When I give the signal, we release the surge." The battle raged. Alaris ships surrounded them, beams of dark energy cutting through the void. The Soul's Promise took heavy damage, its hull glowing from the strain. Ryu gripped the command rail tightly. "Now!" Park triggered the overload. A wave of blue-white light burst from the Terran ships. For a moment, everything went silent. Then, one by one, the Alaris ships began to shatter. Their energy-draining cores overloaded. Exploding from within, the shockwave rippled through space, pushing debris away like dust in the wind. When the light faded, the enemy fleet was gone. The Valerie soldiers on the ground watched in awe as the skies cleared. Velan turned to the others and said, "The humans did it again." But the cost was heavy. Many Terran ships were damaged beyond repair. Hundreds of soldiers were lost. Ryu stood on the bridge, looking at the stars. "We won," he said quietly. "But something tells me this isn't the end." Hanno walked up beside him. "It never is. But we'll keep fighting. That's who we are." Back on Earth, the news of victory spread again, but it carried a shadow. The Alaris Dominion had shown the galaxy that old threats could return in new forms. Humanity and their allies began building stronger defenses, new alliances, and better understanding between races. Months later, Ryu returned to the academy. He watched new cadets training in the field, shouting their oaths to protect the galaxy. For the first time in a long while, he smiled without sadness. Hanno approached, handing him a cup of coffee. You think they're ready? She asked. He nodded. They'll have to be. The galaxy will always test us. As the sun set over the city, the lights of orbiting ships glowed like stars in the sky. Humanity stood ready once again, not as conquerors, not as survivors, but as guardians. The story of what they had done, of debts repaid and wars fought, would echo for generations. And somewhere deep in space, unseen and silent, another force began to stir. The galaxy had not yet finished with the humans. But this time, the galaxy knew something it had not known before. When humans